Welcome to Wealth Mavericks, the podcast where we help doctors unlock the secrets to building generational wealth. And today, we're talking money mindset.
Does your advisor currently know what your financial goals are? Your financial goals, not their goals for you, not their targets that they're trying to hit in the market, not the ROI. What are your personal goals? If you have an advisor who doesn't know that today, right now, stop, pause this video, call them up and fire them immediately. What's the vision that you have for your life? And that's a lot of what we get to do. And we call it the Freedom Roadmap. And in the Freedom Roadmap, it's not just exploring about money, it's exploring about what's important to you. It is identifying a few tangible goals that they can aspire towards.
All right, let's talk money mindset. As we're bringing on more and more members, these podcast episodes are increasingly inspired by these conversations that we're having. And I had a really interesting onboarding call with a new member this week, and the topic of money mindset came up because we were saying before we started recording, we talk so much about doctors and how they give up a decade of their life, oftentimes go into debt to become a doctor. And so what we see more often than not is when they come out and now they're making good money, they're like, I want the nice house, I want the nice car, I want to spend all my money. And, we sometimes talk about how that's not always the best idea. Today, we're talking about the other end of the spectrum where now you've had years and years of success and you've saved really well and you've achieved so much, and yet your brain hasn't really caught up. And you still maybe have this guilt when it comes to spending money, or you're just not willing to do it. And you haven't given the time to really think, what should I spend my money on? What are my next goals? So I would love to talk about the idea of scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset, and knowing where you are and how to make the shift if your mindset isn't quite right when it comes to money.
This is one of the most fascinating topics in my mind, and it's really been the center of almost my entire coaching career, is helping people set and achieve meaningful goals. And I think so much of it just depends on what people want to do. Like in our job, and Bob has said this so many times, like our job is not to tell you what to do with your money. That's your job. Like it's your money, do what you want with that. But I've also seen so many successful people just floating around with this nebulous concept. And it's not even about, I don't even think it's about an abundance or a scarcity mindset. I just think, especially people who are very successful and they can do pretty much whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it. That's a weird place to be for so many people. It's a new place for some people when they get there. And I've talked to so many people where setting goals was like pulling teeth. They're like, I don't know. And that's on both ends of the spectrum, by the way, too. When I talk to people who haven't quite made it there, they've said things like, oh, I feel like it's just like making wishes, or on the opposite side where they are successful, have a lot of money. They're like, I don't know. I can pretty much do whatever I want. Neither one of those, I think, are healthy or good. There's a lot of like ancient wisdom that talks about without a vision, people perish. What's the vision that you have for your life? And that's a lot of what we get to do. And Aaron, you're leading a lot of these conversations with our members. We call it the Freedom Roadmap. And in the Freedom Roadmap, it's not just exploring about money, it's exploring about what's important to you. It is identifying a few tangible goals that they can aspire towards. I remember one of my mentors, he would say this almost every talk that he would give, and there'd be thousands of people in the room, and he'd say, how many of you feel like you have untapped potential? Raise your hand. And like the whole room would raise their hand. Everyone feels like there's this untapped potential that we have. So it doesn't matter what level of success you've gotten to, you still have more that you can accomplish. And that's the joy of my world, is getting to hop in with them and say, where are we going from here? Congratulations, you've done everything that you've had, but what's your new vision? And I've seen what I feel like is like dead people come to life.
Yeah.
I mean, truly. And like, I see people who are just kind of floating through life as it is, all of a sudden you see a spark and their family notices it, their kids notice it, their spouse notices it, and there's nothing that you can really do about that. And we were literally talking about, I won't name the specific company, but many financial institutions are happy to collect their fees and continue to manage your money without knowing what your goals are. I have no freaking clue how an advisor could give you appropriate advice without knowing what your goals are. So, full stop. Answer this question for yourself. Does your advisor currently know what your financial goals are? Your financial goals, not their goals for you, not their targets that they're trying to hit in the market, not the ROI. What are your personal goals? If you have an advisor who doesn't know that, today, right now, stop, pause this video, call them up and fire them immediately. I don't care if you go to us, go somewhere where they actually care about you.
Yeah.
Because if they don't know where you want to go, they don't care about you, period. They care about the money they're making from you. Stop that behavior. So I think, I don't mean to be like overly harsh, but I'm like, I could drop some F-bombs on this episode if I wanted to. I'm not going to, but that industry is designed to suck your money and they don't care about you. And so I just think, and no matter how nice of a guy or gal the person is, they need to know what your goals are. Second to that, if you don't want to fire them, you need to tell them what your goals are so they can actually build a plan that is meaningful to you. Yeah. So I don't mean to get like super wound up about this, but it's a really, really important topic. And I think part of the reason why, Aaron, you're talking about people who, spend money and almost feel guilty about it, even though they have plenty of money, or people who want to spend money, but they don't have enough. It really is a mindset. And you have to determine, just be intentional with what you're doing. Intention will really set a lot around your attention to money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You bring up so many, we could probably have like 8 different episodes with what you brought up. Right. And I think the other thing I'd like to add to that is that it's not necessarily you're sitting there going, oh yeah, when I first hired them 6 years ago, they asked me what my goals were, but you haven't had that conversation since. You've changed. You're different. You as a physician, you've improved as a physician. Your income more than likely has increased as a physician. And how has your plan adjusted to your goals? Now, your goals may still be the same, but the plan to get there really should be adjusting. It's really not the same strategy 6 years ago that should happen for the next 20 years. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that's right. How unoriginal and how actually detrimental to your overall planning. And let me bring this to from a tax perspective of what you're sharing, Joe, is that if you have somebody who you like, who's a money manager, and there's some really good guys out there. So we're just talking about more of the industry as a whole. Just like with any industry, there's some really good and there's some on the opposite end, and then the majority fall right in between. Right. Mm-hmm. So if they're building out, let's say your retirement accounts, for example, right? And you're dumping a ton of money into your retirement accounts because you want to stop doctoring or you want to retire or you want to do whatever that means to you, whatever your goals are there. What plan is in place to be able to address your tax liability in retirement? And if there's no plan for that, you may be in a position to where you're paying more taxes in retirement than you did living, because depending on how big of an account you accumulate, there are required minimum distributions that the IRS does dictate how much you need to be taken out, at least a minimum. And the larger your account, it's all a percentage. So you could be in a position, are you a doctor who has, some of our clients have pensions? Well, I can't control that income at retirement. You're going to be getting that money. That is taxable income you will be getting at retirement. How do I plan for that? How's your guy planning for that? Or are they just adding to it? To where now not only are you getting a pension that is 85% of your, end of career, and that you're building up this retirement portfolio to make up that 15% difference. There's that from a taxation perspective that needs to be part of the equation in that conversation. So it may not be your advisor, and you need to go to your tax guy and say, hey, what strategies can we or do we need to do today or set up to where we can address that? And it's not just the advisor saying, oh yeah, we'll put together a cash value life policy, a whole life, or IUL. right? That is a asset that could assist and help with that. But that is not a tax strategy. That is not, just like
Right.
putting money into a retirement account is not a tax strategy. It's a retirement saving strategy. So,
Well, and I think again, it's the mindset of like, what are your goals? And I would say,
yeah.
like, if I were to summarize this entire episode around mindset around money, is be on purpose. Like whatever you're doing, be on purpose. And I think, you know, for those who are fortunate enough to be in a position where they truly can spend pretty much whatever they want whenever they want, and they're not going to run out of money, that's fine. Like you might live a little bit differently than someone else, but even at that point, having a purpose is really, really powerful. Like you will regain a lot of vigor, you know, in your step, you know, when you do that. And by the way, part of that, and this is one of the most important pieces of advice that I've received from very, very affluent people who seem to have joy around money rather than contention around money, is generosity. Like that's the one thing. It's not the one thing. That's the fastest way to loosen money's grip on your heart.
Yeah.
Like what I've said this. I actually helped write a book talking about this very topic, and it was how to loosen the stranglehold that money has on your life.
Yeah.
And the fastest way to that is generosity. Just give something. I don't care if it's $1. I don't care what it is. Be generous financially.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it's like money immediately loses power over your life. It's like it's the only thing that I know has that instantaneous effect.
Yeah.
The moment it happens, it's like something happens inside of you there, you know. And now I have a spiritual belief, you know, I would consider myself to be a fairly spiritual person. I love Jesus, and I swear a little bit too. But like, I think that generosity fills a void that we have naturally in our lives as humans, the desire to help one another. I think that's an innate thing that we have. And when we do that, it fills this hole where many people are trying to spend money to fill that hole. Many people are trying to keep up with the Joneses, realizing there's no joy at the end of that. There's no joy in the next dollar you're about to spend, that next thing you're about to buy. It's not going to fill that hole. And again, I know we're talking about a deep concept here of the mindset around money. And some of this might be stuff that's been ingrained in us as a little kid, you know, 7-year-old Johnny that's running the show most of the time, you know, the psychology behind that. And so that abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset, that scarcity mindset, by the way, could exist in a billionaire's mind.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there are things that we want to do. Again, we talk about, you know, moving from a place of fear and frustration to power and peace around money. This is one of those things that's really, really key. So I'd encourage you, Doc, if you're listening to this episode and you feel that tension around money, part of this is about being really, really intentional, being on purpose. You know, when you have, I know a lot of people want to avoid the word budget because it has a negative connotation, usually around scarcity. But I think there's an incredible amount of freedom that you gain with a spending plan, if you want to call it a spending plan instead, where it's like, instead of restrictive, it's actually freeing. It's like, oh, our plan is we're going to spend $3,000 a month on activities that we want to do as a family. So then you, as the provider of your family, don't have to feel like, oh, this contention about, oh, we just spent another $1,200 on a concert. And that like steals joy from this experience. Yeah. Right. Or we just left this, you know, big tip, you know, for this person. You like steal the joy out of doing that. No, create a plan for spending and then enjoy spending it because it's inside of a plan. And so that's part of, again, this is a big ball of wax that we're trying to kind of unpack here. But when you talk about being on purpose, when your advisor doesn't know your goals, what's their default plan? Maximize ROI. That's the only thing that they can think about. How much money did I generate? And so when you meet with your advisor once a year, twice a year, 4 times a year, they don't have any plans for that meeting. What do? You show up and they pull off all these papers and they just show you, here's what the markets did. By the way, they didn't have anything to do with that. Here's what the markets did. Right? And so here's your little document about the return on investment or what you gained or what you lost. So get that plan in place. Have your goals written down on purpose. That's what this is about to me.
Yeah. I think that's such great advice because having that goal, that freedom roadmap discussion, and understanding how to accomplish that, and having it adjusted based on how you're accomplishing your goals, right? Goals aren't dreams. Goals should be something that's attainable, that yeah, they may stretch you a little bit, but these are things you want to do. Well, when you're doing it, are you setting additional goals? Right. And you brought something up, Joe, that I think is important for people to understand when you're talking about purpose. When you think about us as humans, as an asset class, we have a purpose. You are a doctor in your specialty, and you know what your purpose is as a doctor in your specialty. So as an asset, that's how you generate revenue. That's how you generate income. That's how you generate what you generate. The rest of your assets, they don't have a brain. We're the only asset class with a brain. So your goals and your plan are designed for your brain to project onto these other assets of what their purpose is. Imagine if you're able to buy a piece of property or real estate or a business or something that creates income, and that entire income is donated to generosity and giving. You still own that asset, but the return on that, you're giving to your church, you're giving to your community, you're giving to that cause that you want. You're in control over that, but that's the purpose of that asset. Right. And so those are things that we're talking about, that there's a huge benefit to having that conversation with our team, with Aaron and the rest of our team, about what do you want to do? And then when we talk about our organization of assets, those assets, and when we use your brain, your goals, we inflict that direction into those assets. So now they know their purpose. And you can call that piece of property my giving property. Name it what you want.
Right.
Family giving property, whatever allows your family to get into that generosity mode, or that mode of whatever you want that piece of asset to do. This is my retirement. This is my travel. This is my. Great. Let's do it. Right. It's better than saying, oh, this is my Fidelity account. Who cares about Fidelity? This is yours. It's not Fidelity's, it's yours. Though Fidelity probably thinks it's theirs, but right. This is yours. So it should be your family, blah, blah, blah account. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that adds to that personality, that connection. And you're teaching your kids, if they're younger age, or even if they're adults, let's teach them how to understand and embrace the value of God's blessings and gifts to you to be able to generate the income, the revenue that you do.
Well, and if I can expand on that a little bit, Bob, maybe with a different perspective. I think doctors specifically are reinforced with exactly what you just said all day, every day. So they are a asset. They are, and what does everyone call them? Dr. So-and-so.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not going to conflict with what your input is, because that is definitely the case from a business perspective and an asset perspective and all of that. But today we're talking about money mindset, and this is going to go a little bit deeper. There's a reason I don't call doctors Dr. So-and-so. There's a reason I call them by their first name, because if all you were was a human doing, then yes, you're an asset, you're a doctor, that gets reinforced, all of that. I believe you are a human being, and that there is a different existence. So it's almost like this yin and yang in our existence. Yes, you have all these things and you do all these things and you generate wealth and you do all this, but you're a human being. And there is a massive void, I think, right now for so many people. And I'm just trying to talk to you, Doc, about that void that you feel, where it's like, what is this all for? Why am I even doing this? Yes, I invested all this time. I mean, I don't know how many doctors get through medical school, get through residency, and then they just go, what am I doing? And they're locked into this career for the rest of their life, or so they feel. But I've seen some very centered people who have made the very difficult, very intentional decision to walk away from that, graduating medical school and going, you know what, this is not for me. I can't imagine making that decision, but it was because they recognized I'm a human being first, and that's where I'm going a different direction. So that's kind of what I'm addressing with this. Is I would just encourage you, Doc, as a human being, to find that purpose, whatever it is. Find your purpose, and be on purpose about that.
Yep, it's great advice.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Bob. Like you said, I think we could have a lot more conversations around these topics. And what I'll say is, no matter where you fall on the spectrum, there's probably some work to do. And just in the conversations I've had over the last few weeks, it's like with some, we may need to help you expand your vision. I mean, the one we started talking about, it's like, well, I've done this, I'm very happy. It's like, that's awesome. But now you've got a lot of life ahead of you, and maybe you need to think even bigger. And he thanked me profusely at the end of the call. It was so cool, to get him thinking about stuff like this that he hasn't really thought about. And then there are others who they have these dreams for their family, but they haven't put a plan in place. And so it's this someday thing. And I had a conversation with a couple who I watched it happen on the call, where they were like, well, we want a vacation home. We want to be able to take our kids to the mountains. And it was someday. And then I watched them, like I asked them how old are your kids? And they realized, like, okay, we only have like 5 years left, but before they go out of college, and we need to make this happen. So like literally on the Freedom Roadmap, we put a date, we gave it a name, we gave it a dollar amount. And there was this like visible piece, like, yeah, we're going to do this, And another guy who like, I know I want to take my kids on these trips. I'm going to need X amount per year to make it happen. Well, he isn't one of those who has just endless amounts of money. So it's going to take a little bit more discipline, but just having that plan in place, he can see that it's now possible, because before it was a wish, it was a dream. He didn't think it was possible for his family. So no matter what, we have a call later today presenting a tax plan. Bob, you are so excited about the dollar amount that we're going to be able to save this family in taxes, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is why people come to us. But there's so much more on the back end when it comes to this dreaming and planning and goal setting that I think people don't expect at first when they're going to work with us. But it's like this huge bonus on top of the tax savings. And it gets me so excited.
Yeah. Well, there's a continuity to what their dreams and their plans are as a person. Because when you do that Freedom Roadmap on the back end, our job is from a business perspective. It is from a dollars and cents perspective, but it gives us a goal for us to help you accomplish. So it unifies us as a partnership, as a relationship. Right. Because when I get those from you, Aaron, I look at it and I look at our plan and I just say, okay, we can actually hit that plan probably this date. This is their date. What if we hit it sooner? Right? Because they don't know what we can do. We know what we can do, but we also need to know their mindset and their insight of where they're at today and how we can accomplish that. That's the power of it. We're not just doing stuff on our end just because we're going to do it and just because that's what we are. No, this is like Joe said, this is your money. This is us doing this for you in conjunction with this relationship and partnership. So it's so important, and why we purposely built this membership model that way, right? We all have our skills and we all have our abilities of taking this together to bring that to you. And that's what makes us different. That's why we speak about this stuff differently. So that mindset, I love that, Joe, what you shared, and Aaron being able to kind of go through some of these examples of some of these goals and setting them. But I just wanted to make that point of that continuity of, yes, it is all part of you and your plan.
Yeah. It gives me chills, Aaron, hearing you talk about, what you've been trained on to pull these goals out. So I've literally had this conversation with over 2,000 individuals, and it has been such a joy for me. I mean, like, really brings up a lot of emotion for me, because I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. And I have people who continue to call me and thank me for helping them set their goals that they've now achieved. They had a 10-year goal, and now that goal happened, in the past now. And it's been truly like life-changing for me to have that level of conversation, to help people gain that level of clarity that they're not getting from anyone else. And you probably get this too, Aaron. It's like, what probably the most common thing that people say at the end of that Freedom Roadmap conversation is like, I've never really thought about a lot of this before. Yep. And I've had people say stuff like, and I'll only talk to them for an hour, and they're like, I feel like you know me better than my closest friends. Like, it's like they don't know. Like, people don't know this because no one's really bringing this out. So it really is our joy. This is part of what we do in our discovery process. So this is like right off the bat, this is the conversation that we're having with you. I know that people come to us because they want to save money on taxes, but I think the reason they stay with us is they understand that we truly care about them as an individual. We care about their family. We care about their legacy. We know that you want to, leave the world a better place than you found it. We know that you want to provide, for generations to come. We know that that's the impact that you want to have. And our job is just to partner with you to help make that a reality.
Thank you. With that, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are new to the podcast, or you have been thinking for a while about partnering with us, let's have a talk. You can find us terrafirmaconsultant.com. You can find us on all the social media. We always start just finding out, how much are you overpaying? What could you be saving? And then the fun part is, once you know how much you could be saving, what can we do with that money? So we love helping people do that. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, go be a wealth maverick.